Welcome to the Money Mile Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Waller, and I'm happy you are here. We like to think of Money Mile as standing at the corner of triathlon and personal finance. We believe that age group triathletes are the lifeblood of our sport, and we like shining the light on some good people doing great things in our sport. Today, we are going to have our Questions on Course segment and a special guest to the show, the one and only Bob Babbitt. Bob is one of the most recognized figures in our sport, journalist, media mogul in the triathlon world, and co-founder of the Challenged Athletes Foundation, whose mission is to provide opportunities and support to people with physical disabilities so they can pursue active lifestyles through physical fitness and competitive athletics. Stick around to hear about Bob's successes in triathlon, the legacy he hopes to leave, and his goals for the Challenged Athletes Foundation over the next few years after we discuss our Questions on Course. Please keep in mind that these are for educational purposes only and not financial advice about your individual situation. So, related to our guest today, I wanted to highlight this situation. How can I better support causes doing good work in the world? First, work to support the causes that are important to you. This can be time, energy, or money. The majority of the work that we do with Waller Financial Coaching is related to the financial side of things, so we're going to focus on that particular part. But I suggest only supporting the causes that are important to you. I have yet to see a scenario where giving away money or resources improves your overall financial situation. Therefore, the primary consideration is that you should be supporting the causes that are important to you. Beyond that, we can discuss further how you can make these changes or how you can implement these things more effectively or efficiently. For most Americans in 2025, the tax structure is such that the standard deduction is the default. It was argued some time ago that the deduction process is the IRS's way of incentivizing social goods, like paying your property taxes, owning homes, and donating to charity. There are also provisions in place for other expenses, such as medical costs exceeding a certain threshold, but this is the starting point. In 2025, the IRS essentially gives you a default amount that you can deduct from your income before you pay taxes on it. The standard deduction is $15,000 for a single person and $30,000 for a married couple. What this means is if you stack up all of your other deductible expenses like property taxes, mortgage, and charitable giving, if the amount is over that $15,000 or $30,000, then you can deduct more than the standard deduction. Whichever is greater between the itemized or the standard deduction is what most people take. Now that we've set the stage, we can talk about 4 ways to go above and beyond and optimize your giving strategy. The first of which is clumping. Now, while I don't particularly love the name, I'll describe the strategy, and if you think of a better one, please let me know. If you are a married couple and your itemized deductions are, say, $28,000, and your total deductions include $5,000 you give to charity, you essentially don't get any tax benefit for making that contribution. This could be a situation where if you have the resources and you double up on the contributions every other year and give $10,000 in one year and then zero the next, you still average $5,000 of contributions each year, but your deductions would be $33,000 in one year in the year you made the contribution and $30,000 in the other year. All of this being said, the rules around this for 2026 are supposed to be changing, so stay tuned for updates in the future. There are at least 3 other financial ways that you should consider when you want to support charities, but these are a bit more nuanced and can apply in certain circumstances. The first of which is donor-advised funds. If you like the idea of lumping together larger donations but aren't 100% sure about the causes you would like to support in the future, or perhaps you want to build a larger account to support multiple efforts in the future, you may want to consider a donor-advised fund. This allows you to donate to a separate fund and then make grant requests over time to other qualifying charities. The second advanced strategy is donating appreciated assets. Many times when people think about supporting charities, they think of making a donation out of cash flow or just out of liquid cash. If you are so inclined and you have taxable assets, you may be able to donate specific assets directly to the charity. So let's say, for the sake of example, you bought 50 shares of XYZ stock at $10 a share, and it has grown to $100 per share, or roughly $5,000 worth of value. If you want to donate $5,000, you could theoretically sell the shares of stock. You would realize a gain of $4,500, and you have to pay taxes on that realized gain. In the current environment with a 20% long-term capital gains tax rate, that means that you would have to pay approximately $900 in taxes, and then you'd have about $4,100 left to donate. Or you could donate those 50 shares of stock directly to the charity and prevent yourself from ever paying capital gains tax on those shares. You also get to deduct the value of the stock as your donation if that's applicable to you. And since the charity won't pay taxes on it either, it could be a win-win-win all around. We do want to recognize that the limits for making a charitable contribution or a charitable deduction based on assets are different than cash, but it's something that you may want to consider. The final strategy I wanted to highlight here is what's referred to as a qualified charitable distribution. This is one that is only available if you have a traditional IRA and you are over the age of 70 and a half. Similar to the idea of donating shares directly, this is an opportunity to make a contribution to a charity directly from your traditional IRA and avoid taxation altogether. The bonus here is that this could also count toward your required minimum distribution if you have reached your required begin date. For the sake of our example, if you wanted to donate $5,000 and you qualified for this, if you were in the 22% tax bracket, you would take $6,400, $6,411 to give you enough to pay the taxes and still net out the $5,000 contribution. Through the qualified charitable distribution, you could also have the $5,000 sent directly to the charity from your IRA, and that way nobody has to pay any taxes on it at all. It's just another option. The rules here are different for the different strategies, so I highly recommend you discuss your ideas with a competent planner or tax preparer to make sure that the strategies fit into your situation. And speaking of supporting charities doing great work in the world, now let's turn our attention to Bob Babbitt. Bob is the co-founder of the Challenged Athletes Foundation, host of Babbittville Radio, and has been inducted into the USA Triathlon Hall of Fame and the Ironman Triathlon Hall of Fame. Bob, welcome to Money Mile.
Well, thank you, Justin. Appreciate it. I'm an age grouper, man. And the cool thing about our sport is, I think, really connects the dots for everybody. If you're a golfer, you can't go play the Masters with Tiger. You can't go play with Federer, at Wimbledon. But you can hang out after you just finished the Ironman World Championship and talk to Jan Frodeno and say, how was the wind at Hawaii? What was it like when you were in the energy lab? Because you're treading water in the same bay they are. You're walking down the same steps to the same water they are. And most of those guys started as age groupers.
It is a pretty neat aspect of our sport, and recognize the wind conditions they experience might be a little bit different 2 hours later when I get there, but it is a pretty fun aspect of the sport overall. So, Bob, if we're doing this correctly, our listeners are out somewhere on their long, steady run. So we would like to put some links in the show notes for our listeners so they can catch up with you after they're done with their run. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
So, Bob, you are a multifaceted individual, journalist, humanitarian, advocate, and champion for others. And Challenged Athletes Foundation has posted some amazing results. So as I understand it, some of these are recently updated, but 32 years of raising money and supporting others, $191 million raised, 52,000 grants, athletes in all 50 states, 73 countries, and 105 different sports. Did I get all that right?
You did. And actually, our 105th sport, which we sent out a grant in last year, was wheelchair pickleball. That was a 105th sport. So, and there's new sports coming every day, which is really one of the things that we deal with. When we first started the foundation, it was all about Jim McLaren. And, he had been an amputee and came back from losing his leg to run a 3:16 marathon with a walking leg. And we're talking in the 80s. And after he ran that 3:16 marathon, he basically had been an offensive lineman at Yale. So he's a 300-pound guy before he was on his motorcycle going to acting class in New York City, got hit by a bus, ended up losing his leg below the knee, runs a 3:16 marathon, comes to Kona, goes 10:42. with a prosthetic, right? And changes the whole face of what somebody can do with a prosthetic leg. He's sort of the Babe Ruth of amputee athletes. And 8 years after he did the Ironman, he was racing in Mission Viejo. A van went through a closed intersection, hit the back of his bike, propelled him headfirst in a pole. The guy's already an amputee, became a quadriplegic. And that was really what led to CAF, because I had covered a lot of wheelchair athletes through the magazine. And when I'd ask them the worst part of being paralyzed, invariably it was, I'm 30 years old, here will come mom and dad back in my life. No sense of self, no sense of independence. So our goal became, you know what, let's raise $25,000 through a little triathlon at La Jolla Cove, and we'll get Jimmy a van with hand controls to give him independence. That was it. So we put on a little triathlon, which I think you have been at, and we raised 49, and we thought, okay, job is done. We'll get Jimmy the van. We'll move on with our lives. But then 3 amputee women came up to us who had put a relay team together to support Jim. And they said, listen, it's great you did for Jimmy, but did you know when you get injured, your health insurance covers a walking around leg or an everyday wheelchair. Nothing to do with sport is covered by insurance. They consider sport a luxury item, which you and I both know sport is a huge part of who we are and what we do. So that's when we got our 501(c) and decided if someone needed a piece of equipment, training, or travel to stay in a game of life through sport forever and a day, CF would be there. And it's, like I said, 32 years, $191 million, 52,000 grants. It's really been a journey. And really from the sport of triathlon, everything started with the sport of triathlon. My first call was to David Yates, the president of Ironman, and he gave us a spot to auction off to help support Jimmy. Our connection to Ironman was a huge part of what's happened in the future. So that led to, Jim McLaren had been one of the first amputees to finish the race. Sarah Reinertsen, first single above knee amputee to finish the race. Rudy Garcia Tolson, first double above knee amputee to finish Ironman Arizona. Roderick Sewell, whose new book Iron Will is coming out, another double above knee amputee in 2019, first double above knee amputee to finish Kona. List goes on and on and on.
That's wonderful. I am kind of curious from your perspective, from the humble beginnings to where you're at now. When you think forward and think about CAF as being a successful organization, doing the things that you want to do, how is CAF defining success these days?
You define success by the people you help. And the fact that we're about to send out $5 million in grants, and the fact that more people are asking for grants than we can support, right? That's a good thing. Also, back when we first started, somebody who was a double above knee amputee like Rudy Garcia Tolson, they were told they would never run. Basically, they were told you'll be in a wheelchair or maybe you'll use a walker. So when Rudy had his legs amputated when he was 6, and he'd had 15 operations before he was 5 years old, he had a flap of skin behind both knees. It was called pterygium syndrome. And they couldn't you'd think, well, just cut it and straighten his legs. They couldn't do it. It was too vascular in there. So they would put these, what looked like medieval cages on both legs. And every night, mom would turn these screws, right, to try to straighten his legs. And every morning they would snap back. So eventually, at the age of 6, Rudy asked his parents to have his legs amputated. And then after his legs amputated, mom is calling Michael Davidson, the prosthetist, to say, okay, my son's missing his legs. And he's, when's he going to get legs that he can run on? And Michael's like, lady, he'll never run. He's on stilts. He'll maybe use a walker, most likely use wheelchair. So finally, after she called him week after week after week, asking the same question, finally, Michael said, Sandy, why don't you bring Rudy in so I can explain to you why he'll never run? Well, when Michael walked into the waiting room, Rudy was doing a handstand on the walker. And at that point, he realized if this kid wants to run, I better figure it out. So the two of them became collaborators. And what you see now in the Paralympics with the high-tech prosthetics, that's from the 50, 60 sets of legs that Rudy continued to break, not by trying to be a track star, but by being a kid. That's what Michael was trying to do, is just let him be a kid. Let me build something that will work for him. And so he's like meeting with Rudy on a regular basis, and Rudy broke 50 sets of legs easily. So Michael's like, 9-year-old Rudy, his collaborator, is sort of forgetting that the kid's 9, and he's holding the socket and he's saying, "So Rudy, what happened this time?" "Well, I was skateboarding and I fell off and the socket broke." And so Michael's holding the socket up and all these Tootsie Rolls are coming out, and he's realizing that my collaborator's 9 years old and he's stashing his stash in his prosthetic leg. But those two, they changed the face of prosthetics. They changed everything. And so now when you see kids running, double below knee amputees running 45 seconds in the quarter mile, that's what it takes now, right? That's what's happened because of the work they did 25 years ago.
Well, it sounds like if we take that one step further, it's creating those opportunities and creating the inspiration to go beyond what you previously thought possible. So Rudy, back in that era, everyone was thinking, hey, he'll be lucky to be able to run ever. And now we've got athletes going 45 seconds in the quarter mile. That type of experience would not have been available, in my opinion, had it not been for the work that you've done through Challenged Athletes Foundation and supporting people to create those opportunities. Do you think that's safe to say?
I do think it's safe to say. And also, it's my favorite thing is this year we were in Paris for the Paralympics, and there's 225 members of Team USA, and 127 had received grants from CAF. And that's not including all the international athletes like Lauren Parker and so many others. It's fair to say that I think we've had a pretty huge impact, especially with para-triathlon early on, because that was our roots with Jim McLaren. Then when we got into the Olympics in 2000 with the sport of triathlon, and then in 2016 we got into the Paralympics. It was the coolest thing to be there in Rio for the first ever Paralympics and to see the single above knee amputee women sweep the podium in Rio on September 11th with Melissa Stockwell, who was the first woman to lose a limb in Iraq. She was blown up in an IED and ended up losing her leg. And here she is getting a bronze medal, along with Lisa Seeley and Haley Dans getting gold and silver. So they sweep the podium on 9/11, 3 American flags, the anthem playing, Melissa up there. That was a pretty magical moment.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I'm sure through 32 years, you could probably talk for days about all of the amazing stories and experiences. Being what I would consider to be a student of the game as far as triathlon as a whole, seems like you're very knowledgeable about kind of how everything goes from the professional level all the way through to a lot of the age groupers and especially the para triathlon space. And now with CAF expanding well beyond just the triathlon world and expanding all the way to wheelchair pickleball, which honestly, I didn't even know that was a thing, but the fact that it is amazing. And you're creating those opportunities for athletes. Kudos for all of the great work that you're doing. I'm just really proud of all of that. You should be really proud of the work.
Yeah, our team is amazing. Doing clinics around the country. We do these OSER amputee running clinics, and you'll see kids from 3 years old to 93 years old. 93-year-old getting a prosthetic for the first time and learning to run on it. It's really, really fun stuff.
So, Bob, what do you consider to be the biggest challenges that the Challenged Athletes Foundation is facing these days?
I think the biggest challenge is back when Jim McLaren became a quadriplegic, there was no sport for Jim, right? There was really nothing. Now we have wheelchair rugby. We've got power soccer. We have so many different, we have off-road e-assist hand cycles. When someone becomes paralyzed, they really lose the use of the trails. Because you think about it, you're in a wheelchair with your hands going in the dirt. Well, now with technology, you get a hand cycle with knobby tires on it, and then you put a little e-assist on there. And even if somebody is paralyzed, like Amy Van Dyken, who won 6 gold medals in the Olympics as a swimmer, then in 2014, she was paralyzed in an ATV accident. And she got from us a off-road e-assist hand cycle a couple of years ago. The smile on her face to be back out on the trails. But the big issue for us is back in the day, there was no sport for quadriplegics. Now there are. But you're talking about a $15,000, $20,000 off-road e-assist hand cycle. The technology has become so good, we can get people great equipment, but that equipment is way more expensive than the $4,500 wheelchair basketball chair or the $2,500 sled hockey setup. It's more demand, more equipment costs. And better technology. All of that is wonderful. Yeah, the other day, Rudy was showing me his legs, actually, his walking legs are about $25,000 each, his walking legs. He programs them with his PDA, right? So he charges it, and then so it gives him, when he's walking, there's microprocessors in there, basically adapting to the fact that he doesn't have knees. It's giving him that support that we get from our knees that he doesn't have. Every single day, there's more and more technology coming out, and it's being able to afford the sports equipment that our athletes need. Because our whole thing is, athletes tell us what they want. I want to go to the Paralympics. I want to ride around the block on a hand cycle with my family. Doesn't matter what their goal is, but our job is to get them that piece of equipment or training expenses or travel expenses to stay in the game of life through sport.
Staying in the game of life through sport. I love that. I know for me personally, just as an age grouper, I don't know what my life would be like without sports. So hearing the stories of how you're able to empower people to still keep that aspect. Yes, you get to have the great stories of sweeping the podium at the Paralympics. You also have lots of folks that are just able to spend quality time with their families being active. Again, love the work that you're doing. So many great stories there. I'm curious, any other particular challenges that you're facing? It sounds like the increasing technology creates more opportunities, also coupled with higher costs. And like you mentioned, like Rudy's walking legs are super expensive, in addition to the fact that he has several other sets, I'm sure. Are there other challenges that you or the athletes are facing that you'd like for the community to know about?
Well, I think the main deal is just understanding that the more awareness, and think about over the years, Robin Williams was a huge part of the foundation and brought a lot of eyeballs to CAF. Kobe Bryant was involved with a Heroes of Sport program with us, with Drew Brees and Allison Felix and Michelle Wee. The media that comes with that means more awareness, which means more grant requests, which is wonderful. But it's the worst thing in the world is not being able to fill every grant request. That's something that our team, they get beat up, just feeling like, God, I want to take care of everybody. And unfortunately, you can't. That's probably our biggest challenge. The nice thing is having people recognize what we do and amplify it. Perfect example, Albertson Foundation, which is Albertson grocery chain. They reached out to us maybe 5 years ago and said, we've been following you for 5 years, and we want CAF to bring adaptive sport to Idaho, and we'll fund it to the tune of 7 figures. All right, just great. Wheelchair tennis, wheelchair basketball, all sorts of clinics. Then 3 or so years later, they go, we think it's time for Fieldhouse. Well, what's a Fieldhouse? We've bought 7 acres of land on the bike trail and on the river up here, and we're building a 55,000 square foot, $60 million facility for CAF that includes a full-on gymnasium, a weight room that you'd see at the University of Alabama, a pool with a ninja course above it, a rock climbing wall, dormitories, hyperbaric building, and it opened about a year ago. And the facility is unbelievable. But when somebody like the Albertson Foundation sees what we're doing and says, we love what they're doing, but we can amplify that by building this amazing facility. And they hosted a winter sports spectacular there a couple of weeks ago. And this summer, end of July, is the Boise 70.3. So we'll be able to showcase our facility to a lot of the athletes who are coming up there to do that event. And it is amazing.
That's wonderful. So you mentioned that one of the biggest challenges is not being able to fulfill all the requests and help create that opportunity for everyone. Do you have a rough sense of about how much of the requests actually go unfulfilled?
So like this year, if we had been able to fulfill every grant request, it would have been probably $7 million, and we fulfilled 5 million. Yeah, we still are sending out a ton of grants, and but it's like every one that you can. When our team goes through the grant requests, and the process is people apply in September and they send in, you have to have financial documentation, et cetera. You have to have something from your doctor showing that you have a permanent disability. Then our team spends months reading through 4,500 grants. And yeah, it's a long process, and that's actually what's happening right now is sending all the dollars out. It's really, really fun to see that happen.
Well, and I would also imagine that through the Challenge Athletes Foundation, you're able to connect those athletes to the resources to fulfill the grants. It's not just a, hey, here's the $2,500 you asked for, but here's the name of the specialist that can help work on the running legs that you're looking to obtain, or the e-assist off-road bicycle. Like you're able to network with those people. And it's much more than just giving money. It's to be able to create that community and create the resources, is how I look at it. Is that right?
Absolutely. Because the thing is, if we're putting on a running clinic in New York, or we're doing a wheelchair pickleball clinic in New York, that's great. But it's the continuity. It's okay, here's the adaptive, here's the New Jersey group that puts on, that is doing, has weekly workouts, right? It's understanding that we work very closely with the adaptive organizations in each market, and they'll recommend to their athletes, hey, you should apply for a wheelchair basketball chair, you should apply for a wheelchair tennis chair. And that's what is so cool about it is the hand in glove with us in the adaptive sports groups, because they actually are going to have their athletes apply for grants. And now that kid is not having to borrow a wheelchair basketball chair that's 3 sizes too big for them when they go to play wheelchair basketball or wheelchair tennis. It's that's the type of thing. Most of these organizations have chairs people can borrow, but if they don't fit, they don't fit, right? You know, you're trying to get into a sled hockey, what they call a bucket, and it's too big. You're falling out of the thing. It's like having a size 11 shoe and you're a 9. You know, you got to make sure that you're getting people equipment that works for them, which is part of the reason it's costly. It's very costly because the products, they're built specifically for that athlete.
Well, an additional aspect of that, as I understand, is especially because you do a lot of work with children as they're growing. You say, oh, that's great when you're 10, but now that you're 15, we've got to look at a completely different stuff. Maybe they're in the same sport. Maybe they found a new passion or a new thing that they want to try, but they've absolutely outgrown what they used to have. So we've got to replace some of that equipment, even if they are sticking with it, even outside of just the normal wear and tear on stuff, because stuff breaks, especially when you're dealing with these types of high-tech materials. That stuff's going to wear out as well. So it's a multifaceted challenge as you're looking at supporting these athletes through a lifetime.
Well, and the issue is, it used to be where a prosthetist would tell a parent, listen, your child is growing. To get them a prosthetic leg now, a sport leg, they're going to outgrow it in 2 years. So wait until they're 14 until you get them a sport leg. So now, for the first 14 years of your life, you're the last kid picked because you have a walking leg. So every 2 years through CAF and with OSER, you're getting a new leg. That's the way it is, right? You grow, and you're going to need to be adapted to a new prosthetic. And the thing that continues to happen, seems every day, like we talked about Sarah Reinerson being the first single above knee amputee to finish Ironman. Well, last year, a young man named Parker Bird, who was a baseball player at East Carolina University, before he started his freshman year, he was tubing, got thrown off the tube, swam back to the boat backed up, and basically cut his leg to the point where eventually needed to be amputated. He signed his letter of intent at East Carolina when he was 14. Yeah, he was that good a middle infielder. And that's a top 10 program in the country. It's a really, really good program. So the night before his operation to have his leg amputated, he said to his dad, so Dad, what does this mean? He says, well, Parker, it means you never played baseball again. And Mom was like, wait. Don't be telling our son what he can't do. And Parker's like, well, Mom, no Division I baseball player has ever played with a prosthetic leg. And she says, well, there needs to be a first, and why can't it be you? And it became him. Right? We're talking first game of the season. Manager looks down at about the 8th inning, says, Bird, grab a bat. Parker goes to bat, gets a walk. He, goes down the first base, standing ovation, sending a pinch runner, standing ovation, ends up on Sports Center that night, ends up on World News Tonight the next night. And next thing you know, parents are going to his social media going, my little boy lost his leg to a shark, to a tiger shark. My little boy had lost his leg to cancer. And these families were going to the games to meet Parker. And then Parker is reaching out to me and saying, hey, I've got this little boy named JJ in Charlotte who lost his leg to a bull shark. And next thing you know, we're taking Parker and JJ to the Major League Baseball Network to surprise both of them with their prosthetic legs. So those are the type of things that, that we never thought of ourselves in terms of mainstream sports, playing at East Carolina or playing collegiate baseball at all. And now we've got kids coming up, seeing what Parker's doing, going, well, wait, this kid's doing that. Why can't I? Or Hunter Woodhall, double below-knee amputee from Utah. He was told when he was a little boy that he would never walk, so he decided to run. And next thing you know, he's top-ranked quarter miler in Utah, and not just with amputees, all overall, high school quarter mile. Then he top 20 in the country. And I had him on my radio show back in 2016. I said, so where are you going to run college? He goes, well, I don't have any offers. Wait, you're top 20 in the country and no offers? So we got him to this track meet at the Armory in New York, high school track meet. In New York Times wrote an article about why does this kid have no offers? Next thing you know, he's getting offers, USC, UCLA, Arkansas. He goes to Arkansas, becomes a 4-time All-American there. This summer, he won the gold in the quarter in Paris. And this is the part I love the most. It's athletics is a precursor for success in life. And so here's this kid, while he was in college, he meets this woman named Tara Davis, who's a long jumper, able-bodied long jumper. Her goal is the Olympics. So this summer, Tara won a gold in the Olympics in the long jump. Hunter wins a gold in the quarter in the Paralympics, and they became America's couple. They were everywhere. You saw them on Time. You saw them in every major magazine, every website. They've got, I think, over 8 million followers between everything they do. When I went to their wedding a couple of years ago, we were told that People Magazine had an exclusive, and Club Med, I think, paid for their engagement party or what. So I love it when our athletes become more than athletes, when they become successful in business. And they're sponsored by Lululemon. Before that, they're sponsored by Champion. So they're getting major sponsorships. I think they own 3 or 4 houses in Fayetteville, and they everywhere you go, there are the Hunter and Tara Woodhall. They've changed the world.
Thank you for being part of the Money Mile community. As a valued listener of the Money Mile podcast, we want to hear from you. We are constantly working to improve our content to be more engaging and relevant to your fitness and finance journey. Whether you're a triathlete, a fitness enthusiast, or just looking forward to being an active retiree, or all of the above, your opinion matters to us. We've put together a quick survey to gather your thoughts on the podcast, what you love, and what we can improve on. The link to our survey will be in the show notes for newer episodes and will also be available in the Money for the Long Run newsletter. If you are not receiving the newsletter, please check out wallerfc.com and scroll to the bottom of the site to sign up for the newsletter. The survey will only take a few minutes, and as a thank you for sharing your insights, you will be entered to win a Garmin Forerunner 965 Premium Watch. This is the perfect companion for tracking your triathlon training, fitness goals, and more. Why should someone consider taking this survey? To help us create content that you love, to shape the future of Money Mile, and also to get a chance to win an amazing Garmin watch worth almost $600. Stay tuned and we'll announce the winner on the podcast soon. Don't miss your chance to have a say in the future of Money Mile and grab the chance to score an incredible Garmin watch as a thank you. We can't wait to hear what you think. Thank you for being part of the Money Mile community, and we'll let you get back to the rest of this episode. One of the things that I really like about the Challenge Athletes Foundation is the open fundraising platform that you use. I know you also have other events that athletes can sign up for, specific events, whether it be like the Alcatraz or the Leadville Trail, mountain bike and run. You have designated events, but you also have what I think is a fascinating open fundraising platform that if someone is interested in helping support Challenge Athletes Foundation and the mission there, whether it's their own local 5K or they just want to raise money on their own. You've created that opportunity for people to better support that. I know like back in the day with the like team and training, like you had to have specific events and that was the only way you could really create that opportunity. But you've done something really special there that allows people of their own individual effort to say, yes, I really support this and I can find a way to make that happen. So when I was reading about that and learning more about it, it seemed like that might have been something that came out of perhaps the COVID era or something like that. Or has that been around longer than that, or is this a relatively new development?
It actually been around for a while. Fundraise Your Way is really, it comes down to, hey, I'm going to go. And we did see more through COVID where people were like, hey, I'm going to run across the state, or I'm going to ride my bike indoors 50 days in a row, and I'm going to raise money for CAF. We love that. And that goes back to, we have a gala in New York that's in September. And I think you'll enjoy this story. So we had this Ironman spot that we'd auction off each year. And it got to the point where if you want to do the Ironman, people would say they'd buy the spot, say they spent $50,000, $60,000 to get a Kona spot. But part of our deal was we didn't want somebody to just buy the spot. We wanted them to know who we are and what we do, right? So they had to come do our San Diego Triathlon Challenge. That was a prerequisite. If you got the spot, you had to come and do a tri challenge. So a guy named Scott Stackman from New York bought the spot, knew nothing about CAF, came to San Diego, and he's there when Robin Williams is presenting a set of running legs to this little boy named Jake Frank. And Jake pops on the running legs and starts running on the grass. And he's playing tag with Robin Williams. And for whatever reason, he runs over to Scott Stackman and takes Scott's hat off his head and is running with Scott's hat. And Scott is chasing him along with Robin Williams on the grass at La Jolla Cove, Scott's thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. If I did something with this charity in New York, I think people would love it. So he called our executive director, Virginia Tinley, Scott Tinley's wife, and said, hey, I would like to do a gala in New York. And this is pretty early in CF days. And so somebody says gala, you're thinking a luncheon at the Red Roof Inn or something like that. And he goes, no, I've rented out the Waldorf Astoria here in New York, and we're going to do a gala. And that gala now has been, I think it's 17, 18 years and has raised north of $23-24 million for CAF from a kid grabbing his hat off his head. It's like you never know. Probably the one thing I've learned through all of this, and actually even going back to Competitor Magazine, is you don't know where things are going to go. You can talk business plan all you want and 5-year plans. One story I love to tell, if you've got time, is there was a young man named Emmanuel Ofosu-Yaboa from Ghana. And he was born missing a tibia in one leg, and he had a fibula sticking out the back of his knee with a foot on it, right? In Ghana at that point, 20% of the people were disabled. They, through AIDS, through malnutrition, and their lot in life was to beg. Nobody had done anything else. And also it was considered a curse if you had a child with a disability. When Emmanuel was born, his dad deserted the family. Mom was told to abandon him in the jungle, which is what people did with disabled children. She refused. She'd carry him back and forth to school. When Emmanuel turned 13, mom became very ill, so he quit school to shine shoes for a couple dollars a day to take care of the family. And then when he turned 18, mom passed away, and he decided he wanted to do something special to honor her life. He wanted to ride a bicycle across Ghana. One problem, he didn't own a bicycle. So through a missionary, they sat down and found CAF and sent us a typewritten grant request asking for a bicycle. We get this grant request. Where the hell is Ghana? I have no idea where Ghana is. It near Cleveland? Where's Ghana at? Then he's asking for a bicycle, and we're looking at his birth date is my birthday. It's May 5th. And we're like, send him a bike. We'll never hear from the kid. Get the bike. He rides 600 kilometers across Ghana with one leg on a mountain bike. You know, people are like going out of their minds. They're running after him like he's Forrest Gump. We decide we're going to bring him to San Diego because of all the media that he's created. He's never been on a plane, never been on a Ghana, shows up in San Diego with like $3-4 in his pocket, does our 56-mile bike ride with one leg on a mountain bike going up Torrey Pines Hill. And I'm Emmanuel, what'd you think of the bike ride? He goes, Bob, I did not know San Diego so hilly. Yeah, that's pretty damn hilly. So anyways, we send him to Loma Linda Hospital, which was our sponsor of ours, and to see if he's a candidate for prosthetic. They say that he's a candidate. So we do a deal. We'll take care of the cost of transportation and the cost of a prosthetic leg. They'll take care of the homestay and the operation. So we sent him back to Ghana. And then I started thinking about it. If we don't capture this on film, what a huge mistake, right? We need to capture this moment. So through the Ironman, I had worked with a woman named Lisa Lax, who produced all the Ironman TV shows for NBC, and she produced the Olympics for NBC. Her twin sister produced the Tour de France for CBS. They decided to both leave TV after 16 Emmy Awards to do a documentary film company called Lookalike Productions, right? They're identical twins. So I called Lisa up, said, Lisa, I don't know what this is with this kid Emmanuel. I don't know if it's a 3-minute story, if it's a documentary. All I know is I want to capture what his leg looks like now, be there for the operation, and be there when he does our bike ride next year with 2 legs rather than 1. She goes, that sounds so cool. When's he coming? Like 5 months, 6 months? Oh, no, 5 days. They put a crew on a plane at their own expense to Ghana. They start filming. Then they follow him to Loma Linda Hospital, has the operation. 6 weeks after the operation, he does a triathlon, runs 3 miles in his brand new prosthetic leg, does 10-mile bike ride, and 150-yard swim in a pool, which he does with Rudy. And then he gets on the plane, cameras following all this. He gets on the plane to go back to Ghana. He gets off the plane in Koforidua, his hometown. He's got a medal on from doing the triathlon. He's got jeans on for the first time in his life because he used to have this stump thing that stuck out the back of his knee. And he's got a $15,000 running leg on in a country with a per capita income of $400. Full-on ticker tape parade, big celebration. We bring him back the following year, do our bike ride with 2 legs rather than 1, which he does in 4 hours rather than 7. Then fly him up to Nike. He receives this Casey Martin Award for people who are inspirational disabled. It comes with a $25,000 grant. We match that. So now he's our ambassador to Ghana with $50,000. Then Lisa and Nancy set up a sit down with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, to talk about the rights of the disabled in Ghana. Then they take this rough cut of this film and send it to Oprah, who agrees to narrate Emmanuel's gift. Then Lisa and Nancy pitch ESPN on Emmanuel and Jim McLaren, who we started the foundation for, to receive the Arthur Ashe Courage Award at the ESPYs, ESPN ESPYs in LA. So we're in the audience, and Matthew Perry is hosting the ESPYs. He introduces Oprah, who comes out and introduces a 13.5-minute feature on Emmanuel, Jim, and CAF, narrated by Kiefer Sutherland from 24. Then the feature ends, and Emmanuel and Jim and Oprah are hugging at center stage. LeBron, Serena, everybody's in tears. Bill Walton, everybody's going crazy. And there's a person watching this back in DC named George Bush. And next thing you know, they're wanting to meet Emmanuel because we're going to launch the film at the National Geographic Theater the next weekend. And President Bush wants to meet Emmanuel. So we're in the waiting room at the White House. This kid was shining shoes 2 years earlier in Ghana. Right? We're in the waiting room at the White House, and we're watching on the TV sets. There's a bombing in the subways in London that morning. Right now, this is happening. We're thinking, there's no way the president's going to meet with us. Next thing you know, they're ushering us into the Oval Office. Rumsfeld and Cheney are sprinting out of the Oval Office to deal with this world situation. And next thing you know, it's myself, Emmanuel, President Bush, and my partner from Competitor Magazine standing in a little circle in the Oval Office. And President Bush is like, Emmanuel, you know what I appreciate? I appreciate that you always were looking to help the disabled and you weren't looking for government help. You're going to do it on your own. So let me ask you, when you ride your mountain bike, do you ride SPDs? Do you ride plain pedals? Do you ride cages? Because I ride with my boys at Quantico. How do you ride your bike? Well, Emmanuel has this full-on gown that he's wearing, and he reaches down, to take his leg off to show the president how his leg works. And it makes an audible click, which the Secret Service was not very happy about. They start moving towards us, right? And next thing you know, the president is holding this leg in his hand. And the guy who set up the visit for us sends us a note the next day. Hey, guys, President Bush loved meeting Emmanuel. Just want to let you know we keep a list. The first that happened in the Oval Office, first person to take their leg off in the Oval Office, Emmanuel Ofosu-Yuboah from Ghana. And the cool part was the picture of Emmanuel and the most powerful man in the world was in all the papers in Ghana. And at that point, the president of Ghana had done nothing to help Emmanuel, who was trying to get more rights for the disabled in his country and to get a Disability Act presented and passed in Parliament. So when Emmanuel flew back to Ghana, the president met him at the airport and said, I will get your Disability Act presented to Parliament. And 6 months later, it was passed. Flash ahead, 2010, President Bush puts on this mountain bike ride down in Texas called the Warrior 100. He invites myself, my co-founder CAF, and a number of the troops who lost limbs or were paralyzed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so the first night, we come, we have dinner, and then we do the handshake and the photo with the president. So I'm shaking hands with the president. I said, President Bush, you probably don't remember, but we met a few years ago in the Oval Office. I was with a young man from Ghana. He goes, Emmanuel, I never did find out. Does he ride SPDs? Does he ride flat pedals? Does he ride cages? And I said, President Bush, what you don't realize is because of that meeting, because you met with him, there is now a Disability Act that was passed in his country. He said, well, you give that young man my best. So that young man now is running for Parliament in Ghana. His first daughter, he named Linda after Loma Linda Hospital. His second daughter, he named Comfort. He travels the world doing motivational speaking. And when people ask, people will say to me, they'll say, God, I'm just one person. How do I make change? How do I raise money like you guys do? And I was like, the plan is not, you can't have a plan. The plan is you roll with things that happen. And when you do the right thing, other people step in, like Lisa and Nancy, and they see that this is pretty special. And then they bring their expertise to the table. And next thing you know, you've got a film called Emmanuel's Gift, which is beautiful.
That is a wonderful story. I remember seeing the film. I didn't know all of the backstory to it.
Oh, you did see the film?
Well, the backstory and then the after effects. It's like, wow, tremendous impact of all of that.
It was very cool. Yeah. And then our other film is Landis Just Watch Me, which you can watch on Google Play, Amazon Prime, Apple TV. Landis, missing both hands, both legs, made his high school varsity baseball team. Figure that out, right? Landis Just Watch Me. A buddy of mine, actually, again, he was a triathlon guy, Eric Cochran. He was a producer for Discovery Channel and for National Geographic Adventure. And about 10 years ago now, he was looking for subject of a documentary, was at a veteran softball game in Orange County, sees this kid batting cross-handed, right? Landis, 8-year-old, chubby little Landis, hitting the ball all over the place, and not just hitting the ball, but talking smack to the vets. He's like, dude, you're missing a leg, not an arm. Get the ball over the plate. What's wrong with you? So Eric was like, that's my guy. That's who we decided to do a documentary on. And so during this 8 years that he was filming Landis became the first high school baseball player missing all 4 limbs. And the film came out. Landis is actually now in school here in San Diego at Point Loma Nazarene. He's trying to make our sit volleyball team for the next Paralympics in LA. Actually, I'm picking him up tomorrow morning to go to one of our one of our adaptive surf sessions that we'll be doing tomorrow. And Landis is surfing and he's plays a little baseball, but understanding that he's moving on to sit volleyball. Eventually he wants to manage, and he certainly knows the sport well enough to do that.
That is wonderful. Sometimes when I hear stories like that, I think about what would the other end of that story look like had you not been involved? And I've had a limited amount of, certainly not as vast as yours, but a limited amount of experience with physically challenged individuals and helping try to support them and seeing what their lives are like without capacity for sport or a way to engage or a way to just to develop themselves as people, that just the mental health challenges and the depression that goes on versus someone who's like, hey, yeah, I can play ball and I can talk smack. Awesome. Sometimes I wonder what that other side of his life might have looked like in a different universe. And for that and so many other reasons, Bob, I'm so glad you're here doing the work you're doing, helping support the world. Thank you so much for all of your efforts.
Well, all this is just our team has done. My co-founder is Jeffrey, and Jeffrey is a financial genius. He's the one who created our endowment program. Our endowment is a financial guy. You like our endowment is over $30 million. The building that Jeffrey negotiated, Jeffrey's the best negotiator on the planet. This building was going for, I think, 2.4 million, 15,000 square foot. It was at auction and he got it for 1.8. I think there was one guy bidding. And so Jeffrey gave him a spot in our $1 Million Challenge bike ride from San Francisco to San Diego, and he pulled out. And so that building's probably worth north of 10 million now. And that spits off 300,000 or so in dollars each year that are used for grants. So it's, what's great is sometimes things are meant to be. So I was sort of the marketing guy because I had Competitor Magazine and a way to promote what we were doing. Jeffrey was actually a sponsor. He was with the Tinley Company, and they were a sponsor of Jimmy at the time. And Rick put on all the local events in San Diego. So it was just like one of those things. Okay, you put the event on, you figure out the financials, and I'll promote it. And so it's just one of those things that, again, worked out really, really well.
Well, I certainly like to think that within the Money Mile community, there might be additional ripple effects, additional impacts of that. And who knows, maybe we'll have another conversation in 5 years and see how everything unfolds from this particular event. But Bob, I know that you are a very busy guy, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing in the world. Appreciate you sharing a little bit of your time with us today. So thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you would like for our community to know about the work that you're doing at this point before we let you go?
Well, sure. Yeah, they can, for folks who want to support CAF, obviously challengedathletes.org. But there's fundraise your way, do whatever event you're planning to do, and we can help you create fundraising pages. This year, for the first time, we're going to be the official charity for the Zuma Beach Triathlon, which was previously Malibu, which I'm very excited about. We're going to be involved with all the corporate teams there. And for the last number of years, we had moved our San Diego Triathlon Challenge event. We started Jim McLaren. We had moved to Mission Bay, and now we're back at La Jolla Cove for the first time since 2019, which we're very, very excited about. So there's a lot of really fun stuff going on. And don't hesitate to check out the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel, those stories I told on Parker Bird, on Emmanuel, on Landis, there's great pieces up there that will give you a sense of who we are and what we do.
Just so I'm clear, Bob, is that the Challenged Athletes Foundation YouTube?
Yes, the Challenge Athletes Foundation. And then, of course, Breakfast with Bob, Babbittville YouTube.
So Babbittville, when you mentioned YouTube, that was the first thing that came to mind for me. I have to say that the Breakfast with Bob is probably one of the highlights for me. Breakfast with Bob, in my opinion, is probably better than some of the racing that I see. I just really enjoy the work that you're doing there. Obviously, you talk with a different caliber of athlete than I typically do. It's thoroughly enjoyable. You tell great stories, and I appreciate your work there as well. Get some insights into endurance racing that the age groupers otherwise wouldn't get to have. So I appreciate you asking the questions you ask and sharing those stories as well. You're doing tremendous stuff in the world. I hope you keep it up for a really, really long time.
Oh, I appreciate it, Justin. It's a treat. And the age group story that always sticks with me the most is Sky Munch is a professional triathlete. But when she was in high school, we were doing our show in St. George from Zion's Bank. We were based in Zion's Bank for the show. And when she came and sat down, she goes, I was a teller at Zion's Bank. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah. And when I was going to go to college, my parents said they couldn't afford college for me. So I needed to work as a teller and clean houses, and graduated with my CPA owing nothing. And then found out she had a little skill at swim, bike, and run. But she was an age grouper, right? She was a person who found out that, hey, I've got a skill at this. But usually they do a couple triathlons as age groupers before they realize that. So that connection between the age grouper and the pro is something that's real. Every one of our pros was an age grouper at some point.
Wonderful aspect of our sport at large. And my hope is that the Money Mile community can do some legwork on their own, to do some research, look into organizations like Challenge Athletes Foundation that are doing tremendous work in the world, creating opportunities for people and continuing to pay it forward as far as the benefits of sport that all of us are able to participate in, and sharing that and moving that forward throughout the world. If there is anything that we can do to help support you in your efforts, we'll certainly be keeping an eye on the YouTube channels and the communications coming out of Challenge Athletes Foundation moving forward. Please keep us in the loop if there's anything else we can do to help.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate your time.
Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope our listeners and our community also found it valuable. I'll look forward to seeing you down in San Diego at one of these events sometime in the very near future. And for the community, we will be including links in the show notes to Bob, Babbittville Radio, and the Challenge Athletes Foundation, all the great work that they're doing there. You can find the link to their website as well as to their YouTube channel. I hope this episode of Money Mile has been valuable for you. If it was, please share the podcast with your training buddies and friends. Keep in mind that if you work out, everything else will too, and we look forward to talking with you next time on Money Mile.